Hi, everyone. This is Jan Varino, Fearless Watercolors, and I have the absolute honor today of painting the Huntington Lighthouse for the Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society. And I have several of the esteemed members on with me today. So they are going to talk about the lighthouse and the history and what they do as I'm painting it live. I'm going to bring Michelle in right now. And Michelle, hi, you're on. And please introduce yourself, and why don't you talk about how this whole thing happened?
Well, it happened because I've loved this lighthouse for a long time. I was thrilled when I could join the lighthouse and become a volunteer. And then before I knew it, I became the secretary. And I also have an art background. So I have wanted for years to have a card of our lighthouse that was, done by someone who really had a feeling for the lighthouse and that we could all use. But I thought not just a card, but something that could also be a fundraiser, that the money or the proceeds, all the money from the card could go to the preservation and maintenance of the lighthouse. So I approached I think one of the best watercolor artists that I know.
Thank you.
And also one of my co-Firefly artists, Jan. And she immediately responded and said, yes, this is great, let's work on it. So it's been, if you pardon the pun, it has snowballed very quickly. I'm thrilled and I'm excited, and we're hoping to have them completed very shortly. So it'll be our first card that will be a true fundraiser. It won't just be we're selling the card, but we will keep, it'll be a cost. If there's any extra cost, I will absorb them, because that will be my donation to the lighthouse, and we can also sell the cards. So it's not going to cost the lighthouse anything. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. I know Jan's excited about this too.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting, and I will be talking about the process a little bit, but I really would like for each of the members that are here to actually take moments and actually talk about the lighthouse and everything that you do there. So Liana, I just made you host. I am going to switch my video, and I'm just going to start painting, and I'm going to let you guys control everything at this point. This is my drawing. It's on a paper called Arches 300-pound press. And this is the photo that I selected for today to paint. But you could see this kind of speckled things going on here. That's masking fluid. And what that does is that preserves the paper. So I could paint this and basically lift it later, and the white of the paper is preserved and is then going to look like snowflakes. So I'm going to stop speaking, and I'm going to let you guys do the talking and all about the wonderful things. I was really intrigued by the lighthouse history, how it had kind of fallen into disrepair, and how you guys saved it. It was up for destruction, and I just think it's a great story. So I really would love for you guys to all share it, please.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me? I am Deanna Glassman, and I'm Vice President of the Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society. I've been involved since 2004.
Deanna, I'm going to do one quick thing for me, and that is Michelle is still on Spotlight, and because I switched hosting to you, do you know how to switch that off?
Wait, I'm not sure what you just said, and it's record.
I'm going to do it right now. I'm back at being host. Michelle, I'm going to take you off, and now you could just see my painting. And Deanna, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. Where was I up to? I became involved in 2004, and I also do tours and send out lots of emails and anything else that has to be taken care of. So, Antonia, can you introduce yourself and talk about your book?
Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Antonia Mateo. I am one of the volunteers for the Lighthouse on the board of directors, and I am the grants coordinator. What I do is I write grants to different organizations, asking them to give us money so we can restore the lighthouse. I am also the co-author of the only publication that exists about the Huntington Harbor Lighthouse. It's an Arcadia publication. It took me and my co-author, Nancy Moran, approximately 4 years to finish. It was, I'll say, a project of that took a long time, but it was a labor of love. And Nancy and I do not make any profit from the sales of the book. It's for sale on the Lighthouse website, and all we ever do is say, please buy a copy, because the money goes towards the maintenance of the lighthouse. What else do I do? Everything that is really needed, from giving tours to, I don't know, selling merchandise.
Okay, Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
So it's Steve Eckers. I've been with the Lighthouse for 20-something years. Many years ago, Huntington Historic had a very nice antique show at Heckscher Park in Huntington. And the group from the Lighthouse was there. I have several crazy talents, so I volunteered. I say, if you need someone, I do locksmithing. I can supply the locks, or I can build display cases and do display cases. And for about a year or two, never heard anything. And then one day I got a call. Gentleman, his name was Bob Noe, N-O-E. He was in charge of the maintenance of the repair or cleaning up of the lighthouse. And he says, how would you like to help us take the boat out of the water and winterize it? And I said, okay, I'm game. I'm not a boater. I volunteered. I went down there. I guess it was sort of a test to see whether I really was a worker or just a talker. And that was my first experience. We took our original boat, which was not a cast off. It was donated to us by Camp Alvernia, if that's the proper way to pronounce their name, because they had gotten some better stuff. I wound up helping Bob and I believe Hank and possibly one other person. It's been so long, I don't remember. But anyway, we flipped the boat upside down. We took the motor off the boat. We flipped it upside down on the beach behind Dr. Harrington's place. Put a tarp over it, tied it down, and that was it. Met the guys, said thank you. You'll hear from us in the spring. And that spring, I was called, how would you like to come and help do some cleaning up in the lighthouse? And I never turned down hard work. So I said, okay, that sounds like fun. Besides, I wanted to see the lighthouse. And I wound up doing whatever was needed, whether it was chipping old concrete, chipping old plaster and stucco off the lighthouse walls, or cleaning windows, painting, whatever had to be done. I just, okay, big smile on my face. It was a fun day. We did it. In those days, Bob Noe, let's see, how do I describe? It was basically every other Saturday we went out there for about 3 hours of work. It was, just, yep. I'll let the phone go. Even if there was only a little bit of work, we went out there, painted, scrubbed, and that was it. And I've been with the Lighthouse ever since. Once I got really active, I enjoy history, so I started, what do we know about the Lighthouse, and what do we know about the Lighthouse? And I got a vague answer of, oh, we have a pile of paper. And I took a look through it. It was sort of a trash bag filled with paper. I started going through it. I started sorting it. And about 2 or 3 months later, I became the historian. And I've been on that job ever since,
Okay.
always finding something interesting.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Maybe we should give a little bit of a history of the lighthouse for anybody that doesn't know. Well, first of all, it was built in 1912, and it replaced a lighthouse that was in Lloyd Harbor, which was not protecting the entrance to, protecting boats coming in to Huntington Harbor, which became more of the commercial port. So in 1912, this lighthouse opened. And we had lighthouse keepers there up until the mid-1940s when the lighthouse was automated. So now the lighthouse is automated. You don't have anybody living there. And what happened is that finally it went into real disrepair. And at one point, it got to a point in 1985 that it was in such disrepair that it was probably dangerous for the Coast Guard to go up there to even go into the light to do any maintenance. And they were going to knock it down. And along came some people led by a Dr. Harrington and his daughter Janice. And they said, we're going to save this lighthouse. And that was 1985. And that's when it began. And that brings us up to what Steve was talking about, where they were constantly looking for people to go in and just kind of, in a sense, take apart the inside and then put it back together. Put in the roof that wasn't there, and the floor and the walls and everything else. And finally, by 2003, it was really ready for people to come in and look at it. And anybody that gets the opportunity to go out there now, they'll see that the inside is really, really very well repaired, and people are really impressed by how it looks. So, Antonia, can you give us any maybe history of the lighthouse keepers or anything else you want to add?
We
Since
do
you spent
have,
all that time on the book.
based on the book, yes, or rather based on the research that we did for the book, we did have approximately, I would say, 27, I think, light keepers. That includes all the keepers for the old lighthouse as well as the new lighthouse. They would not stay for a long time. It was a lonely life, especially on our lighthouse, the one that you are painting right now, John. It was, the lightkeeper was all by himself because it's a small place. There was not enough room for a big family, so they did not get to stay for a long time. We do in the book, and I guess I will have to highlight our book. We do have a lot of fun stories pertaining to the light keepers and the life they had. One of them was McGlone, and he had a family of 4 or 6 children, and they all lived on the old lighthouse while he was performing the duties of the light keeper on the new lighthouse. I'm so distraught by what you're doing, John. I really cannot think. It looks so pretty. It's just coming alive.
It does. It comes alive very fast. And I just love doing these kinds of demos. I do them, I run regular classes. And so I've become, ever since everything was shut down, I've become an avid Zoom teacher. And this is what I do. So I'm so glad. I'm so happy to be doing this for you guys. I really am. It's just really thrilling for me. So yeah, it does tend to happen pretty fast. And I'm also a pretty really fast painters. So those two things. I can also zoom in and show you a little bit more. What I did was, I'll just point this out. I added some salt. You might have seen something kind of me sprinkling some salt, and that actually makes the paint granulate and sparkle, and it gives it a little bit of a feeling of like snowflakes and crystals and things like that. It's really kind of fun process. So, and down on the bottom here, I was just spraying so I could get some nice drips and let the paint really granulate and get the super strength of the rocks there. So, no, but you guys keep talking, because I love the idea of this, the history coming to life as the painting's coming to life. So please, just keep telling us the stories, because they're fabulous.
I wish it were spring again, because we want you to come out and visit the light too. You have to come out and see the light.
I will.
And be my guest. I will pay for you to come out to see the light.
Yeah, you don't worry about that, but it would be my honor to see it, up close like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and right now we do have a red roof.
Yes, I'm going to make that roof red. I am definitely going to do that.
Now, going back to the light keepers, one of them was Charles Burnham, and he had a son of school age. The son will take the bicycle, put it on a boat and come out to the shore, and he will ride the bike to Huntington High School, which is today the Huntington Town Hall. And then at the end of the day, he will go back riding his bike to the shore and on the boat and on the lighthouse. So these are, again, some of the stories that come to life in the book.
Right. I'd also like to add that the Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society actually owns the lighthouse. There's a lot of people think that the lighthouse belongs to the town of Huntington, which it does not. It belongs to the Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society. And we had to really put in a whole portfolio of why we were the people that should be there to run the lighthouse. And hopefully there will be people involved in the society that will just continue to run it for all the years to come, because it really has to be kept up. Just like your house, there's a lot of maintenance, and we just keep doing that. And we hope in the future other people will become involved and want to see it go forward as we get older and older. So,
yeah, to add to that, we have at present submitted an application to the Garner Foundation asking them for money so we can restore all of the windows and the floor to the lighthouse. We haven't heard from them, but we hope that we're going to get the money. And after that, we need to buy in a new engine for the boat. So it's a ongoing process, always needing money to restore something or buy something for the lighthouse. And again, just so that everybody knows, we are all volunteering our time. Nobody makes a dime for the time that we are donating to the lighthouse.
yes.
So if you have any ideas on how we can make more money, please just let us know. See, I'm always after people asking for money.
Before we started, Jan and I talked about possibly doing 4 seasons of our lighthouse.
What was that, Michelle?
4 different seasons of our lighthouse. Maybe we could have leaves falling down, even though there are no trees nearby.
Okay.
You can do anything.
Well, that was one advantage for the lighthouse keepers living there, because they never had to mow the lawn. They could just, they wanted to, I guess they could clean the rocks, but there wasn't a lot of maintenance out there on the grounds, because there's not a lot of grounds there at all. We can say that there's actually no grounds there, and we're kind of just built on a concrete foundation surrounded by rocks. And if we take the dock away, which we do in the winter, the only way to get up there is to climb up on a ladder. And I believe that's how a lot of the lighthouse keepers did originally.
Mhm.
That there was a ladder that they would climb up. There was also, at one point, I believe they could raise the boat up higher out of the water and come in that way. There have been some changes over the years, over the 100+ years that the lighthouse has been there. So I don't think we're going to make any more changes to the outside, but you never know.
There were pets at the lighthouse too, weren't there? Wasn't there a cat that lived at the
Well,
lighthouse?
One of the keeper's relatives had a couple of cats on the lighthouse.
Oh,
Young girl. How the cat survive? Well, no, the cat could survive on the lighthouse going fishing, I suppose. But it's amazing how they did not jump into the water.
yeah. I'd also like to add that there's no electricity out there, and there's no running water. And there was never any running water or electricity when the lighthouse keepers lived there. So it was pretty difficult, and you think in terms of modern times, how they kind of made everyday do out there. They had to, in the evening, I guess, use candles, use oil lamps.
Mm.
And as far as water, they would just collect rainwater and pump it up from the cistern that's down in the basement. So now if we're out there at night, we still use candles, although a lot of them now are electric candles, battery operated candles. And water, we just have to constantly bring it in. We bring in big, big jugs of water. And that's how it is. It's quite primitive out there.
There is, yeah, I was going to say, Steve, you want to tell the story about the outhouse?
Well, I was going to do something before that, but I'll get back to that story in a moment. The last keeper basically were military, Coast Guard staff members. And during World War II, a generator was brought out so they could have a radio for communication. The generator was breaking down on a weekly basis. When you read, the keeper kept a log, a daily list of what is happening. And the generator was there. 2 days later, the generator broke down. The generator was brought out to Eaton's Neck for repair. The generator is back. The generator is running. The generator is breaking down. It went on and on and on. Electric was brought out from land to the lighthouse a week before the last lighthouse keeper left. So through basically the whole history of the lighthouse, there was no electricity. As you said before, water was caught on the roof. It went down into a cistern, which is a storage container down in the basement. Holds about 8,000 gallons of water, if I remember correctly. Which story did you want me to tell?
Well, you said they brought out, just to clarify something, that they brought out an electric line at one point, but it was cut. Yeah. And it was never restored. So that's why there's still no electricity out at the lighthouse.
The current electric line or the last electric line was the third or fourth of a series that were brought out. Basically a monster underwater extension cord. That's all it was.
Right. So we're still without electricity out there.
Still without electricity. That's why the government has gone to solarization for all the power out there. They're not dependent upon any electric lines or anything. In speaking to the technicians who were hooking up the solar panels, they said that we should be able to run for 4 or 5 days because we have an LED-based light, not a incandescent light. we should be able to run 3 or 4 days without any sunlight at all charging the batteries. So
Yeah, but that's only for the lantern,
that's only for the
for the
lantern,
light itself.
and that's all the Coast Guard is interested in, that we have a working lantern out there.
Right.
And for those of anyone who's listening at some later date, the reason that we are there where we are is directly behind the lighthouse. There are some very, very large, a series of very large rocks running towards shore. And any boat that cuts in behind the lighthouse at low tide is in danger of losing their bottom. They will scrape on the rocks.
Right.
Okay.
Steve, this is Michelle. What if they had to get message to shore really quickly? How did they do that? They were stranded for some reason.
Until two-way radios came in again, World War II, they would hop in a boat. They would go into a hail site where there was a Western Union station.
Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
for any young listeners who are around who don't know what that is, you handed a message to an operator. They typed it in, basically a series of like Morse code, which was sent to whatever receiving station was in the area where you wanted the message to go, where it was picked up. It was printed out on a strip of paper, which was pasted onto a larger piece of paper, and then handed to whoever was supposed to get the message. So it was a very, very complex. It was not instantaneous. It was hours for a message. And as you said, I hate to know what would have happened if there was a major emergency there.
Right. Right.
Did you say something about Albert Einstein one time was
Oh,
stranded?
yeah. Albert Einstein, as I describe on the tours, Albert Einstein, as we know, was a very, very brilliant man, but he was a lousy sailor. We have records that I don't have the records in front of me right now, but he stayed at a house on West Shore Road, had a sailboat, went sailing. Evidently, he tipped over, wound up in the water. Our lighthouse keeper went out there, pulled him out of the water, uprighted the boat, and sent him on his merry way. In this one keeper's obituary, it says that he saved Albert Einstein's life.
Okay.
Well, it's true, but with a little stretch of the imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of keepers, most of our early keepers were local people. You needed someone who knew the waters, who knew the boats, who knew what was going on out there on the water. So most of them were either fishermen or the term they used in those days was coasters. They had small boats. They went along the coast from one port to the next, transferring goods. UPS of the day. One of our keepers, Allinson Pearsall. I'm sorry, Allinson Pearsall was a coaster. He was our lighthouse keeper for about 4 or 5 months. He enlisted in the Civil War, fought in a large number of battles that are never in history books. You know, it was the Battle of Smith's Farm, the Battle of the Left-Handed Orchard, or whatever the name of that particular battle was given that day. Never returned to the lighthouse at the end of the war. He wound up in Brooklyn at a number of different addresses and was a streetcar operator. Those were the days when they had horse-drawn trolleys, and he was one of the operators on that trolley. As I said, he never returned to the water. I'd love to. He's buried in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. I wish I could find the story on why he never returned to the water.
Really? Yeah. I'm often asked on tours, how did they get their supplies? And, well, they always had a boat and they could row into shore. I don't think they had motorboats at the time. I would imagine that they rowed.
Yeah.
Or they would go into shore and somehow get their supplies, or supplies were brought out to them.
Yeah.
And they would often be inspected. They would come out, the inspectors, lighthouse inspectors would come out and just check, making sure everything was going well and find out what they needed. But it was quite an isolated life out there.
Yeah.
And now the lighthouse is there for historical and educational purposes. We like to have groups come out for tours, and we hope that people will continue to come out to visit us. The painting's really taking shape. It's looking like the lighthouse.
There you go. That's the idea. So is this?
You would ask a story about the outhouse.
There you go.
When the lighthouse was built, it had no electric, still doesn't have any electric, had no running water, still doesn't have any running water, and it had an outhouse hung out over the water. We have the plans for it, so we know it is a two-seater. And Marvin, I believe it was Marvin Burnham, the keeper, would tell his grandson or his grandchildren that he would sit in the outhouse on one hole and he would fish through the other. It's a great grandpa story. Unfortunately, the outhouse was gone long before Marvin Burnham was keeper there.
Right.
When you're going up the last 4 or 5 metal steps onto the keeper's landing, if you look on the wall of the lighthouse, you'll see the remains of some embedded I-beams, steel I-beams. They were the support for the outhouse.
Yes.
And
yes, they then put the primitive toilet down in the basement.
There was, there was a toilet down in the basement where we have our current one.
Yeah.
But it was just when you flushed it, it just went out into the bay.
Right. So we have to clarify that now our toilet down there is an environmentally appropriate marine toilet that gets periodically pumped out. Right. Does not go into the waters. No.
Yeah.
Steve, they don't know what happened to that actual outhouse, correct? Like,
it was taken down because the toilet was put down in the basement, so there was no need for it, so he got rid of it.
Oh, so it's not this thing like a giant storm took it away.
No.
According to the records we have, it interfered with the architectural beauty of the rest of the building.
Certainly.
They had to take it down. The plans were there to install it since the plans were made for the lighthouse, but they did not install it until January of later, or after the lighthouse was lit.
Yeah. One of the ways that when we get a photo of the lighthouse, one of the ways we date the photo is by the placement of the landing dock for the lighthouse keeper's boat. It moved. It commuted. It started on the north. It was on the north side. It was on the east side, and it was on the south side, depending upon what year. It was a rickety wooden platform. It was a concrete platform. The one on the original one on the north face of the lighthouse, facing Connecticut, there was rocks piled up to sort of make a little cove for it, for the lighthouse boat, the rescue boat. Then it moved, and it moved here, it moved there. I just found a photo with no keepers landing, which is interesting. I don't know. At least from that photo, I have no idea of where they or how they launched the lifeboat. And I have to get someone to take a look and give me an idea. Yeah. The first keeper of the lighthouse was Abathar Johnson. Now we're in 1858.
But that was the clarify. That was the old lighthouse.
The original lighthouse was Abathar Johnson, and depending upon handwriting, we have his name spelled as Abatha, Abiatha, Abathar, and Abiathar. We have 4 different spellings. He's buried in the cemetery up on 110, and we found his grave site there, and I've been using the spelling that is on his grave site.
Interesting.
Again, in 1857, there were not spelling was sort of whatever you felt like, or however you felt like spelling it, you did it phonetically. And speaking of spelling phonetically, in the keeper's log, we have one keeper says, I received 2 tons of COAL today. COAL is just his way of spelling coal. I'm sorry, COLE.
COLE.
COLE. And that was his way of spelling coal. And that was in the 1920s, I believe. So I guess there was no requirement that you had to be able to write. You had to understand English, but there was no requirement that you had to be able to write it.
Yeah, he wrote it phonetically.
Yeah.
Now, one of our lightkeepers, Robert McGlone, he served on both lighthouses. He was a keeper on the old lighthouse, and then he came on to this lighthouse once it was activated.
Interesting person. He's again local. He's local because his wife was born out here in Huntington, Margaret McGlone. The records seem to show, and I have to use the word seem to show, that he was an assistant keeper at Eaton's Neck Lighthouse, but Eaton's Neck Lighthouse has no record, that I've seen has no record of him being there. So he was an assistant keeper at possibly keeper at Eaton's Neck. Then he came out to Lloyd's Harbor Lighthouse, or Lloyd's Harbor Lighthouse as a keeper. It's a small station, so there was no assistant. He was the whole show. When the new lighthouse was built, several people had written to the government that they would like to be the keeper. And Robert McGlone also says, yes, I'd like to be the keeper. And since he had first dibs on it, he was given the job. 5 children, they're scattered around. I'm not going to go into stories on the children. But he retired, and within the year, he had died of multiple medical problems.
Well, lead poisoning. On his death certificate, it says that he died of lead poisoning.
Well, really?
You know,
it was lead poisoning. It was coronary. There was a couple of other things in there. The paint of the day, or when these lighthouse keepers received paint, they didn't receive a can of Sherwin-Williams Best. They were given a can of white lead powder that was to make the paint opaque. They were given colorings. They were given oil, linseed oil, which is the base of oil paint, and thinners, and they mixed their own paint. So when you are scraping off the old paint, you're scraping off lead. You're breathing lead. You're mixing the paint. You're breathing lead powder. So yeah, it's very, very possible that lead poisoning was the main reason could be the main reason for his death.
Now, one of the interesting that I find things about Robert McGlone is that he lost his wife when he was about 40 years old, and he never got married again.
Yeah.
Instead, he hired Augusta Harrington to raise his children, who later became the custodian or the keeper of the old lighthouse. After all the kids, the McGlone kids grew up and left the lighthouse, she stayed on and kept the place going. I think until 1928, when the government gave the property of the old lighthouse to the town of Huntington, and the town had to pay her, but they did not pay her enough money, so she had to actually quit
Yeah.
or resign as the keeper.
Right.
Robert McGlone, his wife are buried at St. Patrick's Cemetery here in town. Her parents, because they were local people. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Robert McGlone was born and raised in Brooklyn. There were several Robert McGlones. One of them was a professional boxer at the same time when Robert McGlone, our keeper, was there. His son, keeper Robert McGlone's father was Robert McGlone, and keeper Robert McGlone's son was Robert McGlone.
Okay.
Sometimes they have initial, Robert T. McGlone, Robert S. McGlone. Sometimes it just says Robert McGlone, so we don't know which one they're talking about.
Interesting.
Going back to Augusta, because she is the only female that we have as a keeper or custodian of one of the lighthouses. Once she left, someone else came on. The town hired Michael Fish to be the custodian of the old lighthouse. And so it happened that Steve wrote to, Steve, whom did you write to? I think you put an announcement on email for anybody who has anything to do with the lighthouse to send us any information they have. So the granddaughter of Michael Fish wrote to us. In fact, she sent images of the grandfather and while on the lighthouse. And one of the things that she said, which beautifully done, that they were never hungry when they were on the lighthouse. Mind you, that was 1930. We were in the Depression years. And she and her family will spend time with the grandfather on the old lighthouse. And I guess they will go fishing and eeling, as she called it. Some beautiful stories, really, that
Yes.
we received.
At one point, a movie studio had wanted to buy the lighthouse, the old lighthouse,
Right.
to use for whatever purpose. I'm not quite sure whether they wanted to use it as a retreat, an office, or a movie set. But whoever, back to Augusta, technically her name was Mary Augusta Harrington. And she also is buried. She's buried in St. Patrick's Cemetery, but in an unmarked grave. There is no tomb. There is no stone there. One of the groundskeepers and I walked the area. It's a 150 by 300 foot area, and it's just grass. That's all. I'd like to use modern technology. There's something called LiDAR that they use for discovering things buried in the ground. I'd love to go over that area and see if we can find something.
Another story that came to mind is our foghorn. Sometimes when it goes off, the neighbors complain that it bothers them. Well, all I can say is that things haven't really changed much, because even in the old times, August Heckscher, thus Heckscher Park here in the town, had a house right across from the lighthouse. And he used to complain to the government that when the foghorn will go off, it will disturb his wife's nap.
Oh,
And what happened is the federal government at some point had to stop the foghorn from going off during the summer months, especially during the summer months. But then they did not keep that going for a long time. The foghorn would come on again.
well, we still have people complaining when the
Mhm.
foghorn goes off, so
Mhm.
nothing much has changed.
Right.
I'd just like to go back to the lighthouse itself for a minute, just so people understand that often the family didn't live there with them, especially while the old lighthouse was still standing, because the old lighthouse had a house attached to it. This lighthouse, our present lighthouse, is very small inside. The living quarters is only 2 rooms. One is the bedroom, and the other one is the living room, dining room, kitchen. And so it's not a lot of space for people to be. It's quite crowded when you have more than, I'd say, 5 people in there. So even though we do have parties and we do rent it out for parties, but there's always the outside that we use. But the actual living quarters are very, very tight, and that's why a lot of the lighthouse keepers live there by themselves.
The living area is basically 13 by 28, and that's the
Oh,
living.
right.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
The kitchen, the bedroom, the whatever.
right.
And you can't tell the kids go out and play.
No. But as I said before, they don't have to cut the grass.
Yeah, and they have a great alarm system.
Yes. Yes. Oh, look at that picture. It's really coming into itself.
Yeah.
It's really looks like the lighthouse.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, good. I'm so glad. I was curious to ask you guys if you know anything about what the rock bed that the lighthouse was built upon. And the reason why I'm asking is because I just finished the engineer's wife about the building of the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was really amazing how they, at either end, the Brooklyn and the Manhattan, and how they had to dig so deep to be able to, hold the bridge up. Now, of course, you don't have a whole big weight thing like they did, but I was just wondering, a lot like I know in Glen Cove, the Morgan's Park, the whole wall there was built by the rocks that came from the subways in Manhattan. And so I was wondering if this rock came from someplace or if there's a little history about that.
No.
Well, first, the lighthouse itself is built on a concrete foundation that's underneath the water. Only at low tide do you see part of it. But so this concrete foundation was actually built on land and then brought out to the site and lowered into the water. It has the concrete foundation several years ago was also repaired because that started to crumble and wear away. And so there was reinforcements put all around the concrete foundation. As far as the rocks, they were brought in afterwards, and where they came from, I don't know. Does Steve or anybody else, Anthony, know where the rocks came from?
He did say that when they did the tunnel going into the city.
Oh, the city. Oh, yes, yes.
Those rocks we use for the
That's
lime.
right.
It's a limestone.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they brought
Some of the riprap, the rocks around the light. The lighthouse is sitting on the bay bottom, and the bottom is sandy. It's just sitting there. There's no rocks under it. One of the contracts called for some of this riprap to come from Connecticut. Some of it came, as Antonia just mentioned, came from when they were digging the subway in Manhattan.
Right, that I heard.
When they were doing the repair work 2 summers ago. They found a large piece of granite, and unfortunately, I didn't get out there in time to see it, and they put it back in the water. But my understanding from one of the people doing the repair work, it was a stone lintel for an entrance to one. Must have been misspelled for one of the subway
Uh-huh. Yeah.
entrances.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and when you hear about an architect, archaeologist on the site at some dig in Egypt or Israel or wherever they're doing an archaeological dig, they're there 24 hours a day to check on anything and everything that comes out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that privilege. They also found one of the davits. That's the arms that were used to bring the rescue boat out of the water, and they had no use for it, so they threw it back in the water when they were replacing the rocks, and we never had a chance to photograph it even.
Right.
Uh, so some of our history is there, still underwater, buried. One of
What
one of our
happened to that?
one of our ongoing mysteries is, where is our original light, our original lens? And I have a feeling it's sitting on some congressman's desk in Washington, D.C., because it is a beautiful thing to look at. Other stuff, I'm sure the Coast Guard or whoever was doing repair work at the time didn't want to bother with, so they just went a couple of 100 feet away from the lighthouse and tossed it into the water. I'd love to get a group of scuba divers going around the lighthouse, 150, 200 feet out, and see what lighthouse stuff is there.
Well, Steve, as I mentioned, when I was on a Zoom call with the U.S. Lighthouse Society, someone from the Fire Island Lighthouse, in addition to their own Fresnel, said that they have a fourth order Fresnel. Now, maybe it's really a fifth order, but they said they don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The I don't have it right next to me here. The Coast Guard published a chart, and it gave two things. One gave the physical sizes of lights, so you can just measure it. A fourth order and a fifth order light are different in size. The other thing is it had a list of what your lighthouse, what your lamp would burn in the way of oil. So if you go to visit a lighthouse, you'll hear them talking about they had to bring gallons of oil up to all these stairs, up to the light, and gallons of oil and gallons of oil. Our light on a long winter's night burned about 35 ounces of oil. So what is 35 ounces? We're not even talking a half gallon. We're talking slightly over a quart of oil. They had to keep track of the oil that was burned, because the government was afraid that the keeper would sell the oil to someone from the public.
Hmm.
And again, going back to the keepers, one of the jobs of the keepers, when keepers were changed, they had to take an inventory of everything. And interesting thing is, our inventories, or the inventories that I've seen, do not list things like beds and chest of drawers and desks, but everything else. It lists brooms and dust pans and everything else. A great story is that when Robert McGlone took an inventory at one point, he said 3 pair of scissors. He gets a note back from the Lighthouse Authority. You're supposed to have 4 pair of scissors. He writes back, McGlone writes back, 1 pair broke. He sent the letter off, and he gets a letter in return. Please return broken scissors. It's an absolute semi-military type operation. You got to account for everything. You accounted for the oil, you accounted for the amount of coal that you received and the amount of coal you burned. You account. There was no. It was also there's no listing of silverware, plates, crocks for storing stuff. But we do have a fairly good list of the medications that were available to the keeper. Because periodically certain medications had to be, they had a shelf life, and after 2 years they had to be replaced. So a lot of that stuff was heavy narcotics, as was the general medications of the day for everyone. So
Can you guys about what people, what they might, we might be looking for people to get involved today?
For anyone getting involved today, we have a phone number listed. We have, give us a call. We're always looking for volunteers.
And
Whether
it's on our website.
Whether on our website, whether it's helping with the repair, or the day-to-day repairs, giving tours on land when we
Selling
have tour
merchandise?
dates, taking care of greeting the guests, selling souvenirs, shirts, whatever we happen to have. There's hundreds of little jobs. I'd love to have another historian helping me to find more stuff. I can find a lot of stuff, but there's always someone who's willing to beat the bushes in the Huntington area we're looking for photos, we're looking for stories. At one of our events at Cow Harbor Day, a gentleman came up to me and he introduced himself that he was the great-grandson of Robert McGlone. And we started talking, and his first question, he says, I got one important question for you. Do you have a picture of him? And I said, no. And that was the first question I was going to ask you. Somewhere around in someone's photo album, there's got to be pictures of these keepers, because people came out there and visited him. People came out to the lighthouse for a tour. The keepers were encouraged to give tours. All keepers of all lighthouses were encouraged to give tours, but we're told they are not allowed to charge for giving these tours, although some keepers did.
Do we have anything in the logs? Remember, the lighthouse keeper had to keep a log every day.
Right.
But I have not read through them all. I know, Steve, you've read through probably a lot more than I have. Is there any mention of conducting a tour at the lighthouse? I didn't think there was.
No, I
any.
haven't found any. Whoops. Oh, here's something. Just to give you an idea of what's in the log, in the 1874 log. Now, this is the original, the old lighthouse. Government boat Mistletoe arrived. Supply steamer left supplies. Steamer Putnam left 2 tons of coal. 2 tons of coal is 4 foot by 4 foot by 2 feet deep.
Yeah.
So if you got 2 tons of coal, that's a 4 by 8 by 2 feet deep. And it all was shoveled through that one small window, because the coal storage room was where today we have our bathroom.
You know, I would think that they didn't give tours on the lighthouse because it was either a member of the Lighthouse Society or it was the Coast Guard, because now you can't go in a lighthouse on a tour that is actively maintained, like Eaton's Neck or West Quaddy in Maine. They have to open it up for you, and it's very restricted. And
No.
even in Pensacola, Florida, there is a the Coast Guard station there. There's a lighthouse and you cannot go in that lighthouse.
Yeah.
Well,
The
why can you go
imagining that
in,
they
why
didn't-
can you go in hours?
Because we are no longer serviced by that. We own that lighthouse. But when
Yeah.
the Coast Guard
Yeah.
main is involved with it, and
Right.
it's not a military base.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
No,
federal,
also-
it belonged to the federal government back then, so I
Yeah.
don't think that
Right.
it was
Yeah.
open to the public.
So that's why possibly there's no photographs of these people. I mean, we do have photographs of some of the well, we
I
do
think-
have of the Burnham family.
I did reach out to the National Archives while I was researching for the book, asking for pictures of our light keepers. They don't exist. They don't have them.
Right.
The National Archives does not have them.
Yeah, there is a new Coast Guard museum being built in Connecticut, and therefore a lot of their material is in storage, which they can't get really good access to. Starting in 1930s, of course, they were issued the Coast Guard people were identified, had identification badges, so somewhere along the line, there's got to be photos of our 1935 and on
Yeah.
keepers. It's just that we've got to find the right person who is willing to go through a lot of dusty files.
Well, you tell me where they are. I'll go and look.
Yeah.
I'll go through the dusty files and boxes.
Okay. I have a name. I think I have a name. I'll get it to you. See
Okay.
if we can do.
Steve, is it the Maritime Museum in New London?
Yeah, I think it's by the New London Ferry is their
Yeah,
new
Yeah,
museum.
okay.
Um,
We were there when they turned over ownership to the New London Ledge Light to their preservation society.
yeah. The Again, I've got a pile of books way back in my basement, so I can't really get to them right now. They're once their museum is open, then I'm sure it'll be a lot easier. But also, Antonia, as your position as a writer, they may open more doors for you than for me.
It will open doors, I will hope, because I am the archivist of the town of Huntington, and somehow people trust that.
Yeah, your title.
more so
Some,
than,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Since I'm not familiar with the military, I know one thing about them, and that a title or a rank will always get you somewhere better than someone with no title and no rank.
When it comes to government and military, it's a totally different process.
Yeah. Oh, I love that
They
photo.
need to, yeah.
I'm just looking at the artwork. That's beautiful.
Isn't that amazing?
Gorgeous, Dan. I'm envisioning you doing this now for other lighthouse societies.
Well, something very special about lighthouses, and this is one very special conversation that you guys are offering to us. I think it's absolutely great that you are just continuing this amazing legacy, and you're carrying such a torch for this beautiful structure. And I really admire your dedication and the stories and everything that you're sharing with all of us. I think it's just wonderful.
When I heard you were going to be doing a painting, what's the term? Plein air, out fresh air. I was imagining you on a boat with an easel and the boat rocking, and you're trying to draw a picture of the lighthouse.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing that anytime soon.
Yeah.
We do have an artist that does that at Firefly. He also crews.
I think I'm sticking with my indoors right now. It's
Yeah.
I'm able to get a better likeness this way. There is a whole different ball game.
By the way, since we're doing this now, December 11th, Jan and I are both, and I think two other artists, at Firefly upstairs. We're doing a trunk show. And we'd love to have anybody who wants to come. Plus, I think, Jan, we're each raffling off something of ours, correct?
We are.
So just to come in and sign in, it's free. You come in, you can see a lot more of Jan's work. And I mean, you can see my work too, but Jan's work is incredible.
Yeah. I'm just looking through some of my random notes from the keeper's log, and this is interesting. So this would be in February of 1889, February 12th, whitewashed kitchen. February 19th, painted hallway doors and baseboard. February 25th, painted kitchen floor. March 2nd, whitewash sink room. And that must be the section of the old or original lighthouse that disappeared in the reconstruction. So March 2nd, whitewashed sink room. March 6th, painted sink room and lantern floors. March 8th, whitewashed sitting room, painted pedestal and table. March 11th, station inspected. Some of the lighthouse keepers were very, very remiss in keeping up the log. They kept the weather every day, but they wrote nothing on the comment section, and others wrote an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we learn about what their day-to-day life was. Also, it's interesting to note that things that we call holidays today, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Lincoln's birthday, Washington's birthday, was just another work day. Their job was 365 days a year. One keeper wrote, "Today's my birthday, hooray." And that was it. And that's the only personal note in going through 40 years or some 30 years of these logs. That was the only personal note that I saw.
Jan, what are you doing to the painting now?
So in the areas that are dry, here I could go in a little closer. I can show you that I'm lifting off the masking fluid, and you can see how it exposes the white of the paper now. So this is just lifting off. I can't do it in the wet areas quite yet, but I wanted to demo it and show you that in the areas that are dry, all those white speckles are actually from the original masking fluid that I put down. And now I'm just lifting it up. I put it down with a toothbrush and an old toothbrush. And now as I take it off, this masking fluid now protected the paper. And this is one big blob right here. Now that white is actually the paper. So I'm lifting it off. I can't do it in the wet areas, which is pretty wet in here, but I wanted to showcase it on how it's going to look like there is a snowstorm. See that little area that's still wet here. So let me just, it's that. Okay. Anything that's wet, you really can't touch. It has to be wait till it's completely dry. But I wanted to show it to show you one of the ways that I get, that effect of snow.
Jan, is the mask essentially like a rubber cement?
Actually, you're absolutely right, Michelle. It's liquid rubber cement, and that's why this gizmo is actually a rubber cement pickup. If anybody remembers the graphic design days when we put everything down with rubber cement, this was what we used to lift it off with. So, so any area that's dry, I now have these beautiful white areas, and you could see the beautiful effects that the salt actually gave us. See these crystals going on here? That's a result of the paint and the water and the salt crystals creating those effects. The rest of it, I really have to wait until it's, to really see it inside of here. This must be completely dry. Otherwise, it will affect the paper and the paint. And I don't want to do that. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview. And if anybody sees anything that I should have done or didn't do or should fix, or, now's pretty much the time to tell me. This whole area here, when this is dry, I'll be lifting the masking fluid. Like in this area here, you'll see I lift this a little bit. Now, see, it won't come off if it's a little damp. So I just have to wait. And this whole area down here where the rocks are is very, is still very wet. I'm still playing with some of the textures on some of these areas. So I'm giving that. I kind of just love the drips and the splatters. And in fact, I think I'd like to splatter down here a little bit, which I think would be fun to do. I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to cover the area of the lighthouse first, and then I'm going to take, let's do some blue. Maybe we'll do some blue here, some speckles kind of coming up. So where's my toothbrush? And I'll show you. We could do it with white. We could do it with blue. We could do it with some of these colors that I'm using. They're really fabulous colors called Moon Glow and Shadow Violet. They're giving me these beautiful violet colors going on. So there's a little splatter. I'll show you how that looks. See that little bit of splatter on either side. Giving it a little bit feel of, the crashing of the water. And we'll do a little white film also. We'll do a little white film. A lot of that just has to wait till it's dry right now, but this is all starting to come together pretty well. And then once it's all dry, I can go back in and add more details to it actually also. So let's get a little white on my toothbrush here. And give some white spray. Some of these areas. It's a little wet still, so it's not going to show up quite as much as we'd like. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh yeah, that's looking.
Absolutely in awe of people who can do this.
What's that?
Absolutely in awe of people who can do this sort of painting.
Sure. It's
anything I do looks like I was holding the paintbrush in my teeth.
Well, we all have our talents, and you certainly have demonstrated to us some of yours. So that's what just makes everything so amazing, is that we all celebrate each other's abilities and talents. And when we come together for such an incredible cause, such as the preservation of this beautiful structure in our bay, that's, really, it takes all of you to do what you're doing and to have it really make it work. And so I'm in awe of everything you guys do also. It's really so special. This has just got to dry right now. I really can't do too much more to it because I'm just going to overwork it. And that's one of the big things too. Watercolors is you don't want to overwork them. Most people do. There's a point where it really does help to just step back and look at it. And I'll just give you a little demo of what I would basically show in a class is that, we're working so close to our noses, and, we're so deep entrenched in our painting that we do more and more and more. But this is a really fun way to demo just looking at it as a piece of art and simulating a nice mat around it. And then it starts looking like artwork and not just a painting that you need to continuously work on. So I like to kind of show that because it really does give you a very good idea of once it's hanging. In fact, Matt, I'll just show you. It just helps it to frame it a little bit, and it gets you away from doing too much to the painting.
Yeah.
There's a little contrast to it.
Beautiful.
yeah.
Jan, you'll be able to, I mean, we're going to make a card out of this, lots of cards, but you will also be able to make a G clay print from this too, right? Couple of them?
Yes, what I'll be doing is, once this is completed, I'll get it scanned and we'll be able to have reproductions made and available for sale. And also, we're going to get cards printed up that you guys can sell also. And so it's just another way to support this beautiful, structure and all the good work that you guys are doing. So yeah, the prints will be available and cards will be available, and that will all take place. Michelle and I talked about this, I think, over a week ago, doing this. And so here we are doing it. I'm really, really so glad that you guys all got to speak about history and the knowledge that you have. And I think it's so important that that is just it's archived for anybody to see and read and knowledge or learn about, because passing this on to the the next folks that will be taking the torch and doing this is really so important. So I'm so glad you shared everything that you did today while a piece of art got created.
Thank you. It's amazing because I don't think I could work on well, maybe I could, but I don't think so, Jan. I don't think I could work and, talk at the same time. That was beautiful. Can you, it came out, can you show the rest of them some of your other prints of lighthouses too? Because most of us,
I can. They are actually in my other studio. If you guys just want to chat, I'll just leave for a moment.
Why don't we come together? Why don't they come together on December 11th if you can make it? It's I think from 12 to 4 that we're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send out announcements on when we're going to be doing this, but it's December 11th on 12 to 4. I believe that's a Saturday, and it's at Firefly Artists at 162 Main Street. And you can meet Jan in person. And I know Val has also joined, but she was muted the whole time. So I don't know if she wants to unmute and say hi. Hey, Val.
Hi, everybody. Great
Val.
job.
And so Jan and I will be at Firefly Gallery on that day, along with a couple of other artists. There'll be a lot of things going on. So come visit. You know me. Come visit and meet Jan in person.
Oh, so maybe at another lighthouse. I was going to do a live demo, so maybe we'll do another lighthouse.
Okay, thank you very much.
This was
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for
Thank
hosting
you.
this.
And happy holidays to everybody.
Yes, happy
Yes.
holidays, everyone.
Yes.
It was really fabulous doing this with you guys, and I'm so glad. I know this all just kind of came together like in a nanosecond, but sometimes, those are just the best ways for something to happen. And so here we are. This is how we make it happen. Is just saying, let's just get together and do this, and this is what happened. So I love that. I think that's absolutely great. So I think my husband might be going in my art studio and getting some of my other paintings. If you want to hang on for 1 second, and Deanna, maybe you could switch the. I'm going to reclaim host here, so I could kind of control the recording and everything that's going on. So does, for people coming and moving into the Huntington area, how do they find out about you guys? How do they know what you, where to reach you? Or, if they don't know about you and they happen to come across this recording, let's get some younger folks involved and have them be as excited and enthusiastic about the what you're doing then so the torch gets passed. I'll just show you a couple of, sorry for the reflection. That's one lighthouse. We're just doing these like kind of stormy, wintry, so you can see the splashes. I'm going to add more of those kind of splashes to this painting here. I don't know where all these lighthouses are. Somebody knows. This is the Montauk Lighthouse.
Yes.
That's the Montauk one. Yeah.
Yeah, the other one was Portland Head.
And this one here, do you know where that one is? See, that has that snow on the,
That looks like Portland Head, but is it
No, no,
Bass Harbor? No.
I
No.
have to go back and check my records actually. And this one, this one was just great fun because of all that mist kind of coming, from the water, the reflection of the water. So I really enjoy doing lighthouses. I actually do everything. So, that's just a little bit about what I do. So, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add before we end this afternoon together?
No, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, if anybody wants to donate, they can go to huntingtonlighthouse.org. And to
Donation
get more history of the lighthouse, they could join our membership or they
Yes.
could donate.
And by the way, on the back of the card, it also mentions that it has our website. It has a little history of the lighthouse. And
Yes.
Jan's name will be on it because she's the artist. And Bill Bond has graciously, he said he would give us he would do the printing for us. So
That's
I've got plastic sleeves for
Very
it and
Right.
I'm excited. I'm like so excited.
And Michelle,
Thank you, Michelle, for organizing.
Thank you for doing this, Michelle. Thank you.
Well, I kind of did it behind everybody's back until I met with Jan, and then I was so excited. I called Deanna and said, I think this is really happening. And, after we spoke to Bill Bond, then I let Pam know what was going on too. So it's,
Okay, I think the recording is still on. Do we want this to be?
Well, we're just saying our thank yous and our goodbyes.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you,
thank
Jan.
you.
Bye-bye.
love you.
Bye-bye.
I love you.
Bye. Happy holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for joining.